Valve is on crack. Or at least they used to be. The Heavy used to shoot before even touching the ground. The Scout had an instant win button. It was insane. These were understandably nerfed, but they've also nerfed some weapons that I'm not sure deserve it. The Atomizer was just too good? One extra jump? So I made a mod that reverts every weapon back to their peak state. Am I wrong, or was Valve wrong? Let's start with the elephant. The Sandman is easily the worst of all time. Extremely deserved nerf. For the cost of no double jumps, you can throw a ball to completely stun whoever you hit. So the big decision is, double jump or ball? Is it easier to get kills with a double jump or the stun? But this question makes no sense. The ball can be kinda tricky to hit, but it is vastly easier to get kills from it than getting kills out of the double jump. Double jumping only becomes important when you've played Scout for multiple thousands of hours and mastered abusing it to trip up your opponents and line up easy shots. So until that point, why would any Scout care about the double jump? Besides killing, the Sandman even manages to make Scouts very useful on defense, since he can stun Ubers, single-handedly ruining a push, which, again, why does he have this power? Uber is TF2's big trump card to break stalemates. It makes no sense one Scout can just say no to all of that. So unsurprisingly, basically every single Scout ran the Sandman in testing. It was paired with Peak Cleaver and Peak Babyface for a unique new circle of hell only possible in this mod. As if it wasn't good enough that you've completely stunned someone, Peak Cleaver gives you a free 150 damage crits. And if that doesn't kill them, you still have bleed damage and Babyface to rush in to finish the job. Babyface was the meta primary here because it's what we found to be Scout's best gun. It does have a bit of synergy with the Sandman. It's the version where boost is only lost if you double jumped, so it complements Sandman removing double jumps. And the higher move speed does help with landing balls. There is also synergy with the Cleaver contributing to the boost meter, but Babyface is also just really good in general. I would say it's a deserved nerf from Valve. The high speed makes it easier to hit shots, dodge shots, but most of all, constantly let you escape bad situations. You are simply so fast that it's physically difficult for other players to catch you. And it's also difficult for anyone to stop you from running away. If you have more than 3 brain cells, you will never die if you pay attention and abort whenever things turn sour. This ups your survivability so much that Scout goes from the glass cannon into just the cannon. This also becomes very annoying and very powerful when you dick around in the backlines, since you can continually evade people and harass forever. You do lose 2 shots, but I found 4 to still be enough to work with. So, Peak Babyface, regardless of how well it combos with the Cleaver and Sandman in this mod, probably didn't have enough of a downside, and Valve nerfing it was deserved. I can see how, back then, a good Scout who knew how to abuse the Babyface in your backline would have been miserable. For the crown of meta primary, Babyface did have a challenger, Peak Soda Popper, but players found its buff wasn't as useful. Which sounds crazy, since it gave you 3 mini crits for just running around. How could 3 mini crits be useless? The problem was that Scout just didn't need any more killing power. In practice, when you factor in that players aren't always going to be at full health, teammates who chip in and shoot at the stunned target, the Cleaver's 150 damage crits plus 40 damage from bleed, and a few hundred damage close range shots from the Babyface. Scout has more than enough damage. So the 3 mini crits didn't help, while the Babyface speed boost helped with hitting stuns and generally being a mosquito. The choice was simple. But on its own, as a weapon, Peak Soda Popper was good. It doesn't have any damage penalties, so after you get over how it shoots, it's just a weird scattergun with free mini crits. If the gun was really hard to use, the free mini crits could make some sense. But as it is, there's not enough of a trade-off or risk-reward to using it. This weapon deserved a change-up. What definitely wasn't good was the Atomizer. They said that the old Atomizer giving you a passive triple jump that costed 10 HP made him too good against explosive classes. But the average scout can barely air strafe and double jump. In testing, nobody got any notable use out of it. Instead, I have a clip of a poor scout getting piped, then ending himself from the triple jump damage. I can understand the change from the perspective of focusing Atomizer on what they intended it to do, purely a tool for getting into funny spots, which is what today's version accomplishes in forcing you to take it out. They probably also weren't happy with pub stompers who could get too much out of the extra jump, which is also understandable, but if they really meant every Joe Schmo scout was ripping it up, then that's a questionable claim. Next on elephants, Dead Ringer was another extremely justified nerf. On release, it had 90% damage reduction, refilled on ammo, and uncloaking didn't empty the meter, all of which was too much. The 90% damage reduction means he effectively has 1,250 health, while he also can still move and dodge shots. This damage reduction didn't fade over time either. Refilling on ammo means your Dead Ringer could be on basically no cooldown, and uncloaking not emptying the meter makes that even easier. As long as you have free brain cells to remember where the ammo packs are, you can run laps until people give up and let you go. At this point, Spy has given up all pretenses of stealth and deception. He's just brute forcing his way in. His entire class design has been demolished with one weapon. But despite all this, he actually wasn't that bad in testing, and it's because Dead Ringer's power is very dependent on the map. Older maps from around TF2's release that really wanted you to have ammo, such as Gold Rush, can enable it to be ridiculous. But on newer maps, where modern map design is more modest about pickups, you can't do anything too crazy. The Pyro just takes a bit longer to roast you to death in the corner. Most of the maps we played during testing weren't hyper enthusiastic about ammo, so his Dead Ringer cooldown was usually nothing game-breaking. Regardless though, it doesn't make sense the cooldown is randomly insane because of the map you happen to be playing, and Valve's nerf is understandable. As for the Ambassador, it didn't have much of an impact. The problem being that you still need great aim to make use of it, so all the players who went Gunspy in testing constantly died. Though how effective it actually was doesn't even seem to be Valve's concern. They said it was nerfed for class design reasons, noting that he just shouldn't even be effective at such long ranges. Elephant 3, Tomislav. This weapon is insane and deserved a nerf. 75% faster spin-up is ludicrous, but it wasn't overpowered in the way you might think. What I noticed was that the Tomislav didn't help with anything intentional. When you're repositioning, rounding a corner, pushing forward, the Tomislav's faster spin-up made no difference. When you're acting deliberately, you always have more than enough time to spin up, and the Tomislav barely changed anything. Instead, it made the Heavy never off guard. The spin up is so fast that you can just rev on reaction and be fine. Here, a red scout sneaks in, but dies after getting 2 shots in. On Frontier, this Heavy gets jump scared by a Pyro, but manages to kill him first, though later dies to the medic. Heavy revolves around being smart and anticipating the game to work around his cumbersome minigun, and in reward gets big damage. The Tomislav takes that away, and the Heavy can have his cake whenever he wants, without the restrictions he was supposed to have, so it made sense to nerf. The nerfs I'm more skeptical of, however, are the Heavy's secondaries. Dropping a sandwich used to heal yourself, and I don't know if getting rid of this mechanic entirely needed to happen. It's possible to say an instant medium health pack is too much, but what if it was small instead? You could make it a small pack only for the owner. You could give it a longer cooldown if you ate it this way. There is a lot that can be done here. In testing, I didn't get the impression that the quick medium health pack was that strong in the first place, and I thought it was interesting the sandwich had more depth. Do you take the quick half heal now, or risk dying, trying to save it for the full heal later? It could be a safe time to eat, but maybe you opt for the quick heal so you can rejoin the fight sooner. The other nerf I didn't get was the gloves and stake speed cap. Valve specifically checks if you are using the stake with gloves and stops the speed boost from stacking, which seems more party pooping than a big balance issue. Without the nerf, you reach the speed of a bootless Demoman with 4 heads, and in testing, the mini crits weren't particularly good. You would just constantly die trying to do anything with it. Maybe there was some insane map exploit that had to be stopped. Heavy on the 2-fort bridge would ruin the game, so Valve had to step in. But regardless, Fat Demo Knight wasn't stomping everyone. As for Demo, he had an infamous nerf on his stickies. They reduced its blast radius in general, made its radius in the air ramp up, and made damage ramp up and fall off affect them for the first 5 seconds. This nerf was called out a lot by viewers, but I play quite a bit of Demolitions Man, and I didn't notice a difference. Though I could be too used to modern Demoman, and it's only something you can notice on longer tests. Here is the worst the sticky radius gets if detonated in the air today, compared to the biggest it ever was in the past. The difference isn't nothing, but I'm not sure it's that big of a deal. Regardless, Demo is still very strong today, and arguably the best combat class in the game, even after all the nerfs, so it seems fine to keep the stickies as they are. Another Demo weapon that was notorious was the lock and load, which at its peak would one-shot light classes. But this didn't end up being that crazy. Not because that's not overpowered, but because that was only possible because of damage spread, which TF2 no longer uses. TF2 used to have damage spread, which made every single attack have 15% variance. A sniper rifle shot that does 50 damage could do 57, then 43. A fully charged body shot could do 172, or 132. This, stacked with explosive variance, made the lock and load's base 120 damage, as high as 147. But I made this mod as, what if Valve never nerfed any weapons, independent of wider game changes? For example, every weapon still has the switch speed buff from Tough Break. And practically speaking, reverting every weapon as time capsules as they were in their time would be too complicated. So for this weird alternate history mod, the lock and load at 20 extra damage didn't seem particularly crazy to me in testing. This isn't to say it's not good, and even today, the lock and load is in contention for being Demo's best primary, so I think it's fine to keep the nerf. But I didn't notice the buff being a big deal while testing it. People didn't suddenly die much sooner, and I wasn't able to take on more players than usual. The demo primary that was definitely worth nerfing though was the September 2007 pre-release beta 6-pipe stock grenade launcher that also exploded on contact. With 2 extra pipes, he becomes even more oppressive. Right now, with 4 pipes and 8 stickies, he already has some of the most influence over the game. Giving him 2 more pipes means he can take on more players at once and have more leeway to miss pipes, which means even greater influence over how matches play out. I don't think I was able to take more risks since your health pool is what matters for that. But 6 pipes allows you to capitalize on more openings that with 4 pipes you would have had to let go. The other issue is that besides more spam and chances to get a lucky hit with the 2 extra pipes, you also can't even walk through the pipes after dodging everything since they explode on contact. You can try to jump over them, but they never quite stay still and unpredictably roll around, making that a risky maneuver. And worst of all, the meet the demo fantasy is a lie. The way pipes bounce off surfaces is way too random for you to ever try to use intentionally. Overall, nerfing this was deserved. It's too much spam, too much power. Explode on contact is stupid, and you can't even LARP. What really went under the radar and should have been an elephant is the old short circuit. It's definitely one of the dumbest weapons of all time. For just 5 metal, you can spam an auto-aim zapper that deletes projectiles. This meant you could just sit in a choke and deny multiple soldiers and Demoman from trying to destroy your stuff. I'm not sure why Engineer needs a weapon to nullify the classes meant to keep him in check, and especially at this level of power and ease. It's comically oppressive to Demoman as well, where you can completely stop them from playing the game since they can't use their guns anymore. Very justified nerf. Engineer's other big nerf is to the Rescue Ranger Wrangler combo, where they no longer stack. Rescue Ranger bolts on a Wrangled Sentry only repair at a reduced 34% rate, and I think this makes sense. In testing, sentries were way too tanky and required an unreasonable amount of teamwork, ammo, and attention to take down, all of which are scarce resources. Here's Red Team trying to take Badlands Middle, but this blue engineer had a sentry out in the open, holding them back. The sentry only goes down because I managed to land the craziest Sandman Cleaver combo. A Pyro and Demo pushed in together to take down this red sentry, but it ended up surviving on 11 HP. Besides its use with the Wrangler, the Rescue Ranger also got a cost nerf. It used to repair for free, but later they made the bolts cost metal, which seems reasonable. The sentry is balanced around assumptions on how much metal the engineer has for repairs, and that the engineer has to be in melee range to repair the sentry, where you have to risk getting shot or blown up. Giving him a ranged repair that also doesn't cost anything, even if you have to give up your main combat weapon, is probably a bit much. For the rest of the classes, no elephants left. Pyro's backburner was interesting. It's crits from the back still, but plus 50 HP and no air blast. Apparently, this was crazy back then because the extra 50 health was removed a month after it released. Probably because W plus M1 only a year after the game came out terrorized servers, but testing it today, it was okay. The big problem is that the fantasy of a Pyro that sneaks behind to get a massive kill streak doesn't actually happen. Most TF2 maps are designed around chokes, so they don't have flank routes that would enable a flanking Pyro. Pyro also doesn't have watches like the Spy does, which is what makes Spy's flanking work. So what this weapon boils down to is getting lucky running into distracted players once in a while. Flanking isn't absolutely impossible, but it's definitely not easy. So in the end, you're left with an upside you can't use, and eating tons of explosive spam because you can't air blast. The current day backburner makes sense. As for the reserve shooter, the old version that mini-crits anything in the air combined with the old air blast was definitely too much. but I think it actually could be okay with today's Air Blast, which is what we tested. Current Air Blast keeps the player much more grounded, so even if you used it with peak degreaser that lets you fire instantly, it was still very challenging getting the mini crit. Besides having less time to hit it, the problem is that with map geometry and props everywhere, you often literally cannot predict where a player will end up after the Air Blast. Here is a goofy clip of a medic being air blasted and pinballing everywhere. A red scout gets air blasted and he's just all over the place. Downward air blasts can work, but it's inconsistent. It's also physically difficult to abuse since you need to flick your mouse around a lot. This could be crazy when players have years to master it, but for now, it isn't. So I think the reserve shooter is okay. For how much effort it takes to get the extra 30 damage, old reserve shooter with new air blast could be alright. Soldier's biggest nerf over the years was probably the equalizer. In the past, the equalizer and escape plan were one weapon, so you get both a speed and damage boost when you were low HP. It was fun to use, but considering the escape plan is still a very good weapon without the damage boost today, the nerf was definitely reasonable. The idea is high risk, high reward. Going for a hit at low HP is a big gamble. The problem though is that the extra speed, plus most players having poor aim, means you win this gamble way too much. It's too easy to get big hits with it, so the nerf makes sense. Rocket Jumper used to be able to grab the intel, and it sounds cool. CTF would finally stop stalemating if players could fly in and out with the intel. But after testing it, I don't think it actually helps. The problem is that rocket jumping for free is too good. It ironically makes CTF even more stalematy. Against a competent rocket jumper, the only real way to stop them is to build a sentry gun on the intel. So now more players than ever are doing it, and we are even deeper in Sentry How. Overall though, after playing through this mod, Valve is on crack, but the cheap stuff that makes you very anxious and paranoid. Not that it's wrong to be careful, but even at their worst, they haven't made any weapons that were really that crazy. The Sandman is the only truly egregious one, but even then, it came out only 4 months after TF2 released. It's not surprising they wouldn't have had a good handle on weapon balance yet. TF2 has a running speed cap of 520, which is how fast you go with full babyface. If this limit is removed, Scout with the Criticola goes 650. That's only 100 less than how fast Demo charges. For whatever reason, the Ambassador originally had bullet penetration, which is cool, I guess. Over the 50 rounds played, the Ambassador never managed to kill someone after penetrating a player. Of just hitting more than one person with one bullet, the Ambassador managed this a whopping 9 times. Which version to use was decided by viewer votes. Set bonuses were not included. I am sorry if you have a weapon you really wanted to hear about, but this video is already so long. I focused on what was mentioned the most by viewers. And this mod obviously makes for a warped weapon testing environment. Ideally, you only revert one weapon at a time and test them without any other changes. But this video isn't supposed to be scientifically adjudicating weapon balance. Don't read too much into it. It's a fun experiment.